got zero friends.
Hey guys, this is What If Superman was in. Sorry, I gotta fix my. What if Superman was in the Boys Universe Part 1? Now, this is a request video from somebody on my YouTube. He requested this, and yeah, I deliver, guys. And some of the requests I deliver. If it's a stupid request about a story that doesn't really make sense at all, like what if Sonic was in the Pokemon world? Like, it's weird, but I guess I can do it. But no. Someone requested like a year ago, like a couple years ago. I don't really think I could do that. Maybe if you guys want me to make that one, I don't really know. But yeah, so this is What If Superman was in the Boys Universe Part 1. Now, my first iteration of the story was going to be well, the Smallville Superman in the Boys Universe and him like evolving his powers in like near the end of season 2. He would go up against Homelander and kill him, but I feel like it's not really gonna go that way. So I went and scrapped that idea, and I went for the more better solution. I went for a Henry Cavill Superman. So let's just dive right into it. You start a story off with this world, Superman. And in this world, it wouldn't be like a multiverse thing. Krypton would have been Krypton, and all other planets like the Green Lantern Corps, they would have existed in the Boys universe. It's just in this universe, Earth wasn't the main center of, heroes. Basically, not much of Earth's aliens were on Earth. Now, one member of the seven, actually the Deep, would have actually been Atlantean in this universe. Atlanteans existing in this universe. But other, DC type characters not really existing, like metahumans. Metahumans would just be people with compound V. So we start our story off with Henry Cavill Superman, or Clark Kent. As basically this version of Henry Cavill Superman is basically just imagine a younger Henry Cavill about 5 to 6 years before the first Man of Steel movie. He looks he looks a lot more younger, maybe in his early 20s or about 19 years old. So what would happen in this younger Henry Cavill, he would have grown up and he would have been born on Krypton but sent to Earth on Kansas, as he would have been raised by Jonathan and Martha, as they would have, raised him as his own, as he would have grown up and he would have not really been a part or watched TV that much, him just watching the news, and him hearing one day about Homelander, but him not really thinking more about him. As Jonathan and Martha would have thought Clark was like Homelander, his abilities were similar with Homelander's abilities, but Clark's powers were extraordinarily bigger. Now, to make this a little bit simpler, not too OP, not make Superman too OP, because be real, Superman could buy the whole entire the Boys universe and body all of them, including Soldier Boy, in one second. But basically, for this to be a little bit more of a, let's just say simpler and not like so OP, basically Clark's powers will be evolving slower over time due to puberty. So after he's about 19 as he leaves Kansas to go to the big city to get a job as a journalist, or a journalist. As he goes there and he says goodbye to his parents, as he goes to the big city, as he goes to Vought Tower, as Vought Tower needs a journalist for some superhero type stuff to basically see what's going on, like photography and camera work. As Clark is assigned to Queen Maeve to basically promote her stuff and basically be kind of a helping hands and get some of the news out there of Vought. As Clark takes his internship. As Clark also has a second internship during the nighttime to do basically photography and other things and basically catch soups and crime and things like that. But him going under a certain under name so he wasn't get fired by his other job, since he's he has 2 jobs that go against each other. But basically what would happen is Clark would have gone to Vought Tower. As Clark would have been raised in Kansas, him not really exploring or showing his powers in public, people thinking he's just a normal person, him not being a soup or registered as a soup. Because, Jonathan and Martha knew that he was not human. And if Vought found out, or the government found out, they would probably take him away and do tests on him. So basically, Clark's powers would have been a little bit more weaker since he would have been starting right after 19 years old, started to evolve more of his extraordinary, better powers. As right now, Clark would just have superhuman strength and basically semi durability, as he would be durable enough to take gunshots and other things like that, but superhuman attacks would actually stunt him or give him bruises, those things like that, but it wouldn't kill him or hurt him too much. So the only powers Clark had at the time were semi invulnerability and superhuman strength, and also a very fast reaction time, but not being able to move like super fast or fly or laser vision or any of those other extraordinary powers Superman normally has. Now, Clark would have gone to Vought Tower as he would have been taking up a job there, as the job would have been pretty simple, just follow Queen Maeve and basically promote her stuff and other things like that. As well, he would have been a part of the promoting, as he would have, being a second-hand manager to the toys of Maeve, the papers, and other news articles talking about her. Now, Clark would have spent some time with Queen Maeve and actually talked to her. Queen Maeve thinking Clark was kind of cute for in turn. Because, well, let's be real. Henry Cavill, bro, he can take your girl, bro. I'm not even lie, bro. He could take your girl. He could take any girl. Let's be real. But basically, this Henry Cavill, because he would have glasses on, he would look like Clark Kent, but a little bit of messy hair, looking more like a teenager, or looking more like fresh out of 19 years old, or straight into 20 years old, like stuff like that. So Clark would have been talking to pretty much Queen Maeve, and his job would have gone simple. But one night, he would have found something very different. At this point, Clark would have met a Homelander just yet, but he would have met Queen Maeve, the Deep, and Black Noir. Now, Black Noir in this world will be the same one, but Black Noir would actually be kind of semi-rich and more of a Batman ripoff, as he would have been still Black Noir, but he would have been a lot more richer, and him living in actually a very deep cave with a lot of, well, okay, I forgot the middle that Homelander can't see through, but the whole cave is made out of that or is sealed with that material, so Homelander can't see in it. And there's also little, pretty much sonic disruptors that, to the normal naked ear of a normal person, you can't hear it, but Homelander tries to listen on to the cave. It's just static. It's like I'm mimicking an ocean noise. So basically, the cave is like a safe space from Homelander. No one, if you go there, Homelander cannot find you. So basically, what would be happening is, well, Superman would have shaked hands with Black Noir, the Deep, and Queen Maeve, basically meeting them as he would have gone back to his apartment in the city, as he would have just been thinking more and more about the city and how, at first glance, the first couple of days, it's been good. Now, this night would have changed Clark's perspective on the Vought name and soups in this world entirely, as he would have gone basically into a gas station, basically getting some snack because he was kind of snacking. He didn't get any groceries when he came down to the city, as he would have been walking back home since he would have not had a car this time, as he would have been walking home, as he would have stopped dead in his tracks, as he would have seen basically a car basically parked or crashed into a technology or TV store, as he would have looked away, as he would have seen, well, Huey and Butcher, or, a skinny, scrawny dude and a British guy in a black coat or trench coat with black hair, as they would have been fighting some sort of nothing, invisible person. As Clark would have been looking closer, as his eyes would have started to twitch, as he would have evolved his X-ray vision or his thermal vision, as he would have seen, well, transparent, or yeah, transparent. I think it's called transparent. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. So basically, he would have seen this, as he would have been very much, well, confused as why they were beating up on transparent, as he would have jumped in there trying to stop them, as eventually they would have fought harder and harder, and then pushing back more and more, as Clark would have stepped in and trying to stop them, as Transparent would have asked him to stop these little dudes, as pretty much he would have started to fight against them, punching Huey through a wall or just stabbing him through a wall since he didn't want to break every bone in his body, as he would have karate chopped Butcher upside the head. Butcher would have been able to dodge a little bit narrowly, as he would have hit pretty much Clark upside the forehead, as Clark would have been phased a little bit, but him coming back with a very strong punch, as Butcher would have been narrowly able to dodge it, as it would have shattered, obliterated the left wall of the building, making a huge ruckus. As Huey would have been grabbed by Butcher, as Butcher would have thrown a smoke bomb, him luckily having a smoke bomb for some reason, as Clark would have been confused. As pretty much they would have grabbed Transparent, electrocuted him, and they would have dipped. As Clark, in all that minutes to go, or all that time, Clark was still phased by the whole smoke bomb, since at this point Clark wasn't invulnerable to, like, toxins or anything like that just yet. Now, Clark would have been looking around as they would have left. As Clark would have tried to find them, but then being nowhere to be seen. Now, what would happen after that? Clark would have just ran off, him not trying to get caught by, making that much damage, as pretty much the news would have gone onto it, saying that some sort of superhuman attack happened at this store. And basically them seeing pretty much, a huge crater made in that building, and in the middle of the crater, it was a human-like fist. As all, news creators said that maybe it was Homelander or some sort of other soup, a terrorist, as they would have thought more and more about, maybe there are supervillains in the world, people with powers that don't want to be heroes. Now, what happened is this would be very difficult for the world to think. Now, Vought would have known that Deep, in this universe, Deep isn't a Compound V user. He's actually Atlantean. So, he's not the king, but basically, to put it simple, in this universe, the Deep is, the king of Atlantis, but he isn't really the king. He's more of a brutaler and overall just douchey version of Aquaman. Him being, the Deep. The Deep in the first season, he was a freaking jerk, bro. He was the worst of the worst. He was a scumbag. But basically, he's even worse now because he's a king. He's way stronger now, and he's Atlantean on top of that. So, he was born a king, and he was groomed to be literally like a freaking scumbag, bro. Just a spoiled brat. Because in this world, the Deep wouldn't be half Atlantean. He would be full-blooded Atlantean. Him having all the powers Atlantean has, or the same powers as Aquaman, as he would have been modified with a little bit of Compound V. So he would have had the same powers to talk to fish as Deep has, as he would have been able to also control fish. I don't think Deep can control fish, but he can talk to them. As he would have been able to control fish, talk to fish, also breathe in the water, but he would still have those same gills on his, I think his rib side. So he wouldn't have gills on his, neck. He would have still have gills on his, rib side. Still being, those ugly little weird gills. As he would have also still had not as strong as anybody else on the team, but being able to actually go up against people like Black Noir and even try to go up against Queen Maeve, as he would have been strong, he'd been near the same strong, 50% as strong as Aquaman, maybe 55. Him also having a trident made out of pure solid gold, mixed with a little bit of Atlantean middle, and Vought knowing about Atlantis, but not knowing where it is. As, Deep says he was never going to disclose that information whatsoever. As the public knows about Atlantis since, Deep told them about Atlantis, as it would still be his backup, his, little story on the internet, but it would actually be real in this canon. Now, what would happen as they would have started to get more into the political side of the whole boys universe, then thinking more and more about what's going on. Now, what happened as Black and White would have tried to look up into this, trying to figure out who did it, looking into some security cameras and other things like that. Him eventually finding something interesting. A man, or a very young man, running away from the scene, looking a little bit terrified with black hair and glasses. As this man would look very familiar to the man Black and White shaked hands with a couple weeks ago. As he would have been very much confused, pitting a dart of submission and painted a dot over Clark's head on a billboard, on a pretty much, I can't remember what it's called, a chalkboard or something like that. I don't know. Basically, stamping Clark as a suspect to the situation that happened last night. Now, what would happen after that? Clark would have been thinking more and more what was going on, as he would have able through all that chaos, he would have been able to memorize the cars, even how it looked like, and it had a symbol, or basically a signature on the back of it, as he would have gotten ready to track down the car, as he would have tracked down the car to a nearby, pretty much warehouse a couple weeks after he found out, because he had to take a couple weeks to do his job and also look this up. As one night he went down there, as he would have went down there, as he would have heard a gunshot, pretty much a couple feet away, not a gunshot, but a explosion. As he would have looked around, as he would have opened the door, as he would have seen basically people covered in blood, and Butcher looking over at Clark. As Clark would have said, "I'm not here to fight, I'm here to talk." As Clark, in those days, he would have found out more about Vought, about how it's letting things slide, and him knowing about pretty much, Stargirl, or Starlight. As Starlight would have been a part of the story, but not a crucial part of the story like Clark. As Clark would have known about pretty much Starlight, as one night when he was going to Vought to do some work, because in those few weeks, he was able to hear what happened, but some sort of super hearing that he manifested a couple of days later, as he would have heard what was going on with Deep and Starlight, as he would have been discussing what he heard. Now, what happened is, he would have wanted to team up with the boys to get rid of all the bad soups in the world and to eradicate them, as some bad soups aren't really, they need to be punished by the law, not killed or murdered. As Clark wants to do it the good way, but Butcher wants to do it the bad way. Kill them, basically. As Butcher says, "I'll take you up on that offer, but there's no promises that I won't kill any soup that I might see." As Clark would have said, "I'm fine with that." As Clark and Butcher would have shaked hands, as Butcher would have said, "And if you cross me, I'll find a way to kill you, boy." As he basically walks off from Clark, as pretty much, Huey shakes Clark's hand, as Huey and Clark are new to this whole thing, and Clark will very much get wheezy and queasy near the blood of everything that's going on. Now, Clark did read up on the paper about what happened to Robin, so he does talk to pretty much Huey about this, and basically says that soups are horrible. As Huey says, "Aren't you a soup, though?" As Clark stays quiet and just walks off, as Clark doesn't know for sure that he's a soup or not, but he was never exposed, because Compound V isn't, public now, and Clark doesn't even know about it. So Clark doesn't really know if he's a soup or not. But his parents said that, because his parents would have told him at this point that he wasn't from Earth, and that they found him in a ship. But they never showed Clark that ship, and they said when when time comes, he will be able to get pretty much, his ship, I guess you could say, his lineage, or his lineage, his legacy. Now, what happened is the following weeks, Clark would have gone with the boys, learning more about the dark side of Vought, and how they're just letting everything slide, and soups are getting away with literal murder, killing, prostitution, and other things like that. Clark being disgusted about Vought, and even rethinking his job with Vought. But Butcher telling him that his job with Vought might give them the upper hand to learn more about Vought's plan and about the, Homelander scum. Basically, to simple, well, Clark was on their side. Now I'm gonna leave it up here, guys. And part two will be a lot better. Because in part one, I'm just setting up the whole plot of it. The plot is, Clark is going to be fighting alongside Butcher and the boys to go up against, Vought and the soups, all the bad ones at least. And Clark would be a recurring type of angel alongside Huey, angels on Butcher's back, trying to convince Butcher that, killing all these soups won't really do much, but we need to go up against the big thing, Vought. Vought's letting the soup slide. Vought's covering up their crimes. Vought's letting them do whatever the heck they want, as long as it doesn't put a big train on Vought's name. Now, what would happen as well, Butcher would have thought more about this, as he would have thought more and more about how Clark could help them, well, with this big thing. Now, part 2 will be a lot more action, a lot more of a clearer story, and it'll be a lot more just overall better scripted and better written. Because in this time I read this, and my writing is kind of all over the place. But yeah, so the plot, Clark's gonna help the boys and also be a double agent for pretty much the Seven, and we'll see Clark's side alongside Starlight's side of the Seven, and basically end of part 2, let's just say a little bit of Homelander and Clark action's going to happen. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.
Visit